Ace for radio.
And I believe we are live.
And we're live, going live over on YouTube. Hello, Facebook folks. Hello, YouTube folks. Hello, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Comic Shop Talk Live, brought to you by Black Hat Comics and Rockin' Milpitas, your one-stop shop for all things superhero. Shop online at black-cat-comics.com. We're here to keep you connected to the comic book community. I'm Mark.
I'm Francie.
And our very special guest today is Mike Marts, editor-in-chief of AfterShock Comics.
Hello,
Welcome,
everyone.
Mike.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
So,
it's fun. It's fun getting to be with each other, and we're on different coasts.
That's right.
Yeah.
During these crazy COVID times, we can still connect virtually.
Right.
So great to have somebody. You have like over 25 years of experience in this industry.
Lots of experience.
You have quite the resume here. That's very exciting. So I have lots of questions. I'm sure she does. I'm sure the folks at home have lots of questions. So we'll just get right to it.
Oh, sure.
Yes. So you've had 25 plus years in the industry, Marvel, DC, and now you're editor-in-chief of AfterShock for the last 5 years or so. Congrats on passing the 5-year mark. That's huge.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a big milestone for us.
Yeah, I bet. So what was it like transitioning from the big two to starting your own company at AfterShock? That took a lot of guts.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people said I was crazy to do it at the time because, you know, when I left to form AfterShock, I was executive editor at Marvel and, you know, back editing the X-Men and Guardians of the Galaxy. And, you know, Marvel had recently been bought by Disney and the movies were doing great. So, I mean, everything, you know, looked great, you know, for someone in my position. And, you know, it was kind of the top of my game, so to speak. But in the back of my head, there was always this kind of desire, this need to build something of my own. And I loved all my time at Marvel, loved all my time at DC. But I always kind of felt like they were stepping stones and places for me to learn and build. And along the way, I just kind of, you know, realized I had this desire to build something and maybe start my own company, but I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the partners. Eventually I found that with the people at AfterShock. But it was very different in that at Marvel or DC, you are playing with toys that have belonged to those companies for 75, 80 years.
Right.
And you're just the caretakers for a short while. You go in, you do some cool Batman stories, you do some cool X-Men stories, and then you leave the little pieces where they were, and someone else comes in and does the same thing. And it's a great privilege. You know, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. The work at AfterShock is a lot different because now we are going to specific creators and saying to them, what is your dream project? What is your passion project? What is that story that you've always wanted to tell? And then we're helping them develop that and giving it birth. So, you know, instead of kind of jumping in to play with Iron Man, who's been around for, you know, 70 or, you know, 50 years, you are creating something brand new like Dark Ark or Animosity. And you can say that you had a hand in that and you helped these creators kind of give these projects birth.
That's great.
So tell us about the meat and potatoes of AfterShock. What's the company philosophy? What sets AfterShock apart from all the other guys out there?
When we started the company a little over 5 years ago, we sat down and we talked about just that and what was going to be our mission statement. And there was a lot of things that we spoke about, but we kept coming back to 3 core concepts. The first one was just story, simple story. Whatever we did would have to be something that we, as readers, would want to dive into, to experience, to absorb ourselves. If we couldn't be fans of these projects, then they weren't worth doing. So we needed to be passionate about it, and they had to be stories where we related to the characters and sympathized with them. So that was really the first core concept, was the story. The second one was quality. We wanted to make sure that, you know, everything we did, from the paper we printed on to the types of creators that we worked with, you know, to the type of people that we brought into the company, we were very tough on ourselves and gave ourselves a very high level of quality that we wanted to strive for. So quality was the second thing. And then the third thing that was kind of one of our foundations was this thing that we call intelligent risk. And the definition that can change from one month to the next, but it just kind of involves a willingness to try something new, figure out the best way to do it, and then tackle it head on. And that could be anything from the subject matter of the project that we're trying, or new type of format. But, you know, trying something new and then figuring out the best approach and how to tackle it. And those three core concepts, those have been the pillars of AfterShock from day one. They go into every single project that we acquire and every creator that we work with. And we feel that's been a large reason for the success that we've experienced over the past 5 years.
And is it a deliberate choice to go within specific genres? So horror and sci-fi seem to be your wheelhouse. Was that deliberate? Or was that just because that's the area that you guys really enjoy reading?
A little bit of both. It certainly is the areas that we enjoy reading, but there are deliberate, decisions being made about that. We've done a few projects that have kind of dabbled into superhero territory. We did Super Zero with Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor. We did Captain Kidd with Mark Waid and Tom Pyre. And those were wonderful projects, and we're happy we did them. But we do feel, there are many superhero books, being done by the two big companies. They do them quite well. And that area we feel is a bit crowded. And when you look to the type of, media entertainment that people are consuming these days, whether it's Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, or any of the networks or the movies, people gravitate towards sci-fi, towards horror, towards true crime.
Yep. And
so those kind of became the genres that were go-to for us. That being said, we like to dabble in new areas. We have a romance book coming up later this year. When we did insects back in our first year, we felt like we created a new genre with that book. So we like to stay flexible and work with many different genres, but a lot of times it's just whatever the best story that comes our way, that's what we latch on to.
Love it. Story is key. It's got to be key.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it works. And I've said for a long time, I think that's where the biggest growth is in comics. And I think that's a lot of the future in comics, is expansion of these other genres and giving more people a wider audience, more things to read, more things to check out.
Absolutely. I feel like, like these days I sit down to watch some TV with my daughter and my fiance, and, we'll be watching something and we'll watch Lock and Key, and they didn't even know it was a comic book first. Or watch, Warrior Nun. And, my fiance says, that was a comic book. I was like, that was a comic book like 25 years ago. And, so, there's all this, this entertainment that people are consuming that aren't traditional capes and tights. And and a lot of people aren't aware, and many people are, that these all were born from comic book stories. And so I agree with you. I think, that whole area is the biggest area for growth for this industry.
And maybe given the times, we're just more drawn to science fiction and horror because that's the times we're living in right now.
They certainly are the times we're living in right now. Yeah.
What has it been like as a publisher during COVID? I know that Diamond stopped producing work for a good couple of months. How's it been for you guys?
Very, very challenging. But I think that we've discovered a lot of things about ourselves as a company, during the past few months. When the basic shutdown happened, we were nervous about the state of the world and the state of the industry, and we realized that we kind of had to get out in front of the issues ourselves and figure out how we were going to direct the company through this crisis, and what was going to be best, not only for the company itself, but for our reader base, for our retail community, for the distributor, for everyone, our printers, everyone that we work with every day. I think we were at first disappointed there was going to be a shutdown on the distributor side of things, but I think after a few weeks into it and knowing how serious things were, we were able to roll with that, and then happy that we could kind of finally at the end of April, beginning of May, get some product back out to our readers. But we took a very specific strategy. We took a look at our entire publishing schedule and really strategically rearranged everything so that number one, people like you guys, stores, wouldn't be overwhelmed when business was kind of resuming, so that you guys weren't like, why is AfterShock putting out 5 books this week? We can't handle 5 books. It's crazy.
Right.
So we were very deliberate in trying to parse out our releases, and to kind of gradually ease back into things. And then we also really had to think about our creators as well, because all the guys and girls that are working on our books, they're pouring their heart and souls into it. And I think that, quarantine crisis or not, they all deserve an equal opportunity or equal chance at having their projects promoted in a great way, advertised in a great way. So we had to take a hard look at our upcoming releases and when we were going to schedule things, because obviously a number one issue is better for the bottom line than subsequent issues. So it was a tough call on our part because we knew we were going to be delaying the advantages of having a number one issue out there. But it was a better choice for the retailers, a better choice for creators. And we decided to kind of come back softly in September with a few launches, and then kind of gradually get back into what would be our normal release schedule from that point on.
We very much appreciated that deliberate soft opening again, because if we were to open and have 3 to 6 weeks of back stock on our doors, it would have been overwhelming.
Exactly. It wouldn't help anyone.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
You said something that I think is super genius, especially coming from editorial, and it gave me like 19 questions. Well, what you said was that you go to the creative people and say, what's your dream project? What's that thing you really want to do? And then you get that back. Honestly, that seems kind of the reverse of how these things usually go, or at least I think in the fan's mind, the editor opens the door to his office and says, I need 6 issues of this book, and somebody raises their hand, or you say, Bob, give me 6 issues of this book. And so you know, that's what creative people want to do. Creative people have 19 stories they want to tell, and then 4 of them are their dream project.
Right.
And so it seems really smart to get those projects from people as opposed to telling the creative people what to do. So
Yeah.
in that, but that brings me to my first of many kind of editor questions. How do you corral all of that? And I know obviously there's editors under you and such, but as long as I've been a fan, and I think everybody knows this, the biggest challenge to comics is late books. And publishers, you know, spend a lot of time getting books out on time. Fans are always waiting for something. There's always an issue of something that we're joking about that we're still waiting for. So what does the editor-in-chief do to keep the animals in the zoo doing what they're supposed to do?
Yeah, it's a trickier way to maneuver when you're working in creator-owned comics. You know, working for the mainstream publishers, and you're working on titles that have been around for, you know, 20 years, 30 years. If a book gets late, you have a little more flexibility and freedom to kind of turn to inker A or B to come in and help out so that you get your train back on the tracks. Or you could schedule a fill-in issue. You know, there are different tricks, different ways to do to get things kind of, you know, back on track and make sure that you don't really miss shipping. In creator-owned comics, that can be trickier because you're working usually with a singular creative vision, and the artist is oftentimes a co-creator with the writer on a project. And that means that you don't have the luxury, or you wouldn't want to turn to a different artist to get things to come in quicker or faster. You're trying to maintain and retain artistic integrity, and to see the vision of the book through. So that can be a challenge sometimes with creator-owned comics. And, you know, to be honest, that was a struggle with us in the beginning, the first few years of publishing. We had some books which were on time all the time and hit their mark. And then, you know, we had a few problem children where things would become late, and, you know, we had to figure out ways to correct that. What we were able to do over the last, I would say 2 years, is we built up an inventory of great ideas and great projects with great creators that could develop and get worked on, and, you know, they're you know, being assembled, you know, when other things are coming out and people don't even know. And, you know, when there's enough issues ready that you can properly market something, announce something, and know that you're going to get everything out on time, then it's okay to release it and announce it. When we started the company, you know, there was an eagerness and excitement to get, you know, enough fun stuff out there to consumers quickly to let people know, oh, AfterShock is serious. AfterShock means business. You know, AfterShock has cool product. Now we've been doing this a few years, and, you know, we know we can acquire projects, stockpile them, and then release them when ready. And I'll be honest, this crazy, you know, times that we're living in now, the quarantine has allowed us to get even more ahead in our schedule.
That's great.
So yeah.
That never happens, right? We always.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm happy to say there are releases we have coming out in 2021 where the entire projects are done already.
Wow.
So yeah. So that it's a comforting place for an editor and publisher to be.
That's awesome. So the name AfterShock, where does it come from?
So the of the 4 founding partners of my company, I was the last to join, or the last to be invited to join. And when I got there, the name was already there. It had been conceived a few weeks earlier. 2 of our partners are from California, and our home base office is in California. And so AfterShock was something that was familiar with Californians like
Yes.
yourself. So that's where that came from.
That makes sense. We're thinking he's from New Jersey. Like, why did they have a California earthquake name?
Yeah, well, we didn't want to call it, Garden Comics or Bagel Comics.
Two things that I want to make sure everybody watching hears. One, I want to thank you for the SOS project that we have right here. And folks at home, if you don't have one, pick one up because it's a great comic. Want to appreciate the retailer support.
Yes.
Want to mention the quality of work, all the kind of things. The other thing is your free comic book day book. Is Dark Arc, and we go nuts for free comic book day every year. I've talked about free comic book day to death over the years. Tell us what free comic book day means to AfterShock, and why Dark Arc specifically is the book you chose for your free comic day book this year.
Yeah, Free Comic Book Day has been very good for us in our first few years of publishing, specifically in building better relationships with our retailer community, and also for the exposure. On those days we get many hardcore fans coming into the stores, but at the same time you have a lot of casual customers coming in. So it's a wonderful chance for us to be able to show, here's the best that we have, and here's what AfterShock is about. The projects that we've done in the past for Free Comic Book Day, we felt kind of did a good job of encapsulating and kind of symbolizing what the AfterShock brand is about. So we did Animosity last year, which was is our longest running title, and this year we felt Dark Arc was comes in as a close second, I think, in terms of longest running book and something that really symbolizes the AfterShock brand. Cullen Bunn at this point will certainly become the most prolific creator at AfterShock. He's done several projects with us already, and there are a number of projects which are in development, which I can't talk about yet, but will be coming down the road. So Cullen's been such an important member of the AfterShock creative community that we felt it was silly not to pick Dark Arc this year. And true to form, Cullen delivered an amazing story, which we were able to get illustrated and out to everyone. Our only disappointment was that we didn't have it out for the first week of May, but everyone's in the same boat there, and we were happy that eventually Free Comic Book Month could be celebrated, and now it's out there with the fans.
Free Comic Day, all summer
Yes,
long.
All summer long. Yeah.
What's a big part of it? I come at everything as a retailer and as a fan. I always do everything as a fan first, because I always say, if the fan's happy, then the business takes care of itself. And one thing I really like about Free Comic Day is exactly things like AfterShock and like Dark Arc. As I've said many times, and this isn't a negative in any kind of way, but you can give out Marvel, DC all day. People respond to, it's familiar to them and all like that. People love the X-Men, love Batman, but I like handing out things that people have never seen before, never heard of before, or have sort of only limited experience with, and show them the kind of infinite range that comics come with. And so, like I say, I appreciate that you guys have a Free Comic Day book, that it's something like Dark Arc, that it's so different from everything out there. Because, like I say, I like to show everybody the huge range that comics has.
Our only challenge as retailers is sharing with parents that not all comics are for all ages.
That's true.
And we've got, so we're still doing curbside. So we're doing curbside free comic book days, Sundays. And we've got a bunch of people signed up, and we don't know if they are adults. We don't know if they're kids. And so we're, on the fence about, do we put the boys book in there? Do we put the dark arc book in there? Because we don't want to offend anybody. But at the same time, it's important for people to see the wide range that comics have to offer. They're not all just for kids anymore. They haven't been in probably 50 years.
Yeah.
So my thing is, if you're old enough to drive for a curbside pickup, you're old enough to get dark arc in your bag.
I think that's a pretty good way. Yeah.
And if the parent looks in the back seat and sees their little kid with dark arc, well,
That's on them.
Yeah, exactly.
Back in the 70s, we got handed a couple covers like that, and we turned out all right.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be careful sometimes. There are certain a lot of different types of stories that we'd like to tell, and some of them are geared for more of a mature audience, and that's always something that we have to take into consideration and always think about.
Do you have any young reader books coming up in the pipeline?
We do. I will say that we'll probably be doing some type of fun announcement. We've been kind of holding on to something, hoping that there would eventually be a convention this year, where we could talk about stuff like that. But yeah, there's certainly a desire and a concentrated effort on the part of AfterShock to develop reading material that will be suitable for a younger age, and whether that's real young, or if it's more of a YA audience.
Right.
We're still fine tuning there, but when we do it, we want to do it the right way and really want to come out with something of a program of sorts. So it's something that we talk about, and we plan towards, and I think that we would eventually get there.
Mm-hmm. Great.
I wanted to say at the top, I like to share this AfterShock story. As the guy who does the ordering, as the retailer guy, I always say my dance card is full. I'm not really looking to add more publishers, add more titles. We all know there's tons of comics out there. And one of my favorite things happened a few years ago when the phone starts ringing. Do you have the latest issue of Animosity? And admittedly, I didn't know what that was. So I was like, no, it must be a publisher. Would you like to order it? I'll be happy to order it for you. Like the fifth time I got that phone call, I was like, I gotta find out what the heck this is, and so started, ordering your books, picking up your books, and got immediately sucked into Animosity.
Right.
As a fan, I'm sorry to admit I'm the same way. My dance card is full. My budget, my reading time is full. So I just don't take on other titles. Here I am reading my own store's newsletter. I'm reading the review written by one of my employees about this book called Dark Arc. And I was like, this sounds awesome. I've got to be this. Went to my employee. I didn't even know we were carrying it. I'd ordered the book. He was in his subscription box. I was like, what is this Dark Arc? What?
Right.
And he took it out of his sub box and handed it to me. And I felt kind of stupid because he bought it from me and I didn't even know what it was. But like I say, as a fan and as a retailer, that's just my favorite thing is when it's not on your radar. You're not even looking at your radar, but this thing shows up and suddenly you need the next issue and you can't live without it.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that was a huge challenge to us when we started the company. I at the time I had 25 years experience in the industry and had worked at Marvel and DC, and I knew retailers, and and the same, Joe Pruitt, my partner, he won Eisner's and had done tons of stuff. But still, we knew it was going to be challenging because we went to the early retailer summits, and a lot of people like yourselves would listen to our spiel and say, those all sound great, they look cool, but just so you guys know, we've got 5 spots on this shelf and 5 spots on this shelf, and they're pretty much full with other stuff. And so, we knew that was going to be a challenge, and we didn't want to give up. We just kind of kept trying to swing for the fences. And Animosity was certainly the first time where we felt like, okay, our formula is working. We can make this work. We went back to second printing, third, fourth, and it was overwhelming to us, but in a very good way. And I think that at that point, people started catching on and realizing, okay, this is a young publisher, but they're here to stay. They know what they're doing. And I feel like each year, whether it's been Animosity or Baby Teeth or Dark Arc, we've kind of had that project which is kind of broken through.
I couldn't agree more. And you guys are proving that thing I always love to say to people. All my life, and I go further back than I'd care to admit, I've been reading comics a long time. And then one thing me and the old guys always talk about is the death of comics. We've been hearing about the death of comics forever.
Always.
This was killing comics, and that was killing comics, and everything's always killing comics.
Right.
And I've always said that when comics are good, people buy them. That the market is there, that people are hungry for good old periodical paper comics. I'm not dissing digital, I'm just saying that people want comic books. And when they're good, they buy them. And when they're not good, they don't buy them. And whenever people are talking about the death of comics, it's because comics aren't very good right now. And when comics are quality, then like I say, people buy them, read them, love them. And again, I think you guys are kind of proving that, because when you're a new company, you're a young company. And you said Baby Teeth, and I think that's such an excellent example of what I'm talking about. All of a sudden, Baby Teeth, at least in my little corner of the world, sold like crazy. And when you're outselling, big 2 books, and when you're again a newer company and you're not worldwide yet, whatever, but your books are selling really well. That means somebody picked up your book, liked it, and kept reading it. Shared it. They told a friend, that friend picked it up, et cetera, et cetera. And so, like I say, one thing I give you guys a lot of credit for is like I say, proving that if you make a good comic, somehow, somewhere, the market shows up. People start buying your book. Like I say, I think you saw that with Animosity. I think you've seen that with some of your other stuff. And as you said, it's probably a very pleasant surprise.
Right.
But again, I think it sort of goes to what I've always said, that there's a hungry market. They're hungry, but they're still picky. And when what they want, they show up for it. And again, as a retailer, I really appreciate that, because we take our own intelligent risks. And like I say, when you guys support us on that, and it works out, that's a win for everybody.
Win.
Win for the fan, win for the retailer, win for the artist and the publisher and the whole bit.
Yeah, I agree.
So I wanted to ask about you being 5 years in now. Again, big congrats on that.
Thank you.
I would imagine, even though you guys collectively have decades of experience, it's still a brand new company. And I would imagine that when you started, you called your friends on your Rolodex and said, hey, you guys, we're doing something new, you guys want in. 5 years in, are now people calling you guys?
Yeah, that's been one of the best byproducts of our growth over the last few years. Certainly when I started the company, both Joe Pruitt and myself were kind of turning to people that we had great relationships, and that was Paul Jenkins and Amanda Connor, Jimmy Palmiotti, Garth Ennis, Mark Wade, and we were really fortunate to be able to launch the company with some names like that. We had Brian Azzarello and David Hine, and then as we grew, we had a lot of repeat customers, repeat creators, people who enjoyed the experience at AfterShock and wanted to do more with us. But what would end up happening is that creator A would tell creator B, hey, I had a really good time at AfterShock. They treated me fairly. They have a good deal. They promoted my book, and that, was kind of a Pied Piper effect where we would get creators coming to us, saying, hey, tell me about your company, and is maybe we can do something together. And that has happened more and more over the last few years. We have like a weekly creator call where we review all the new pitches that have come in over the last week, and we get usually like 20 to 25 pitches a week, and then I narrow that down to the best 10 or 12, and then as a group we discuss them, and what are the merits of going forward with this project or that project. And it's not chasing projects or creators anymore. We have a very good healthy dose of people coming to us. That being said, we haven't sat there and rested and been like, okay, people are just coming to us. We're still actively recruiting, scouting, trying to figure out not only who is that great creator out there who hasn't worked with us yet, but also who's that great creator of tomorrow that maybe a lot of people haven't realized yet. Because there's always going to be someone new. Donnie Cates was over here at one point, and now he's here. The same thing back in the day with Mark Waid or Kurt Busiek or Garth Ennis. Everyone was new at some point. And so we're always looking for that creator of tomorrow, and I feel like Marguerite Bennett was a great example of that. Again, she was a writer that I had worked with at DC quite a bit in my last year or two there, and when we started the company, I knew she was the type of creator that we wanted to do something with.
How do you spot new and upcoming talent? Do they need to have some self-published work? Do they need to be have a success record? Like, what do you look for those that haven't necessarily worked professionally yet?
Well, I would say there's no magic formula, but you always kind of want someone to have a body of work somewhere. And sometimes that's in comics. It could be doing a few things at Marvel or DC. It could be them self-publishing their own thing. Or other times we have writers who come in by way of Hollywood or who are playwrights. Most of it is comics internal, and having done stuff before that we could take a look at is very important. There's always different areas, different ways where we're finding new talent.
And for those readers who aren't that familiar with the industry, can you talk a little bit about the difference between, work for hire and creator owned as a publisher?
Yeah. So, basically, work for hire would describe most of the creative arrangements that happen at a big company like Marvel or DC. For instance, at Marvel, Marvel owns Iron Man, and writer A or writer B that come in and work on Iron Man do it under a work for hire agreement, which basically means they'll earn a page rate and they will get paid for their work, but at the end of the day, they don't own it. Marvel does. And if an Iron Man movie comes out, Marvel is the prime benefactor of that. I'm not saying they wouldn't award a writer whose work made it into the movie, but the primary person who benefits from that is Marvel. In a creator-owned agreement or creator-owned opportunity, the person who brings the project to you, whether it's Brian Azzarello or Marguerite Bennett, they have ownership in the property. So if something happens afterwards, if a movie or TV show comes and is based on their work, then they benefit from it. And the perfect example of that is Robert Kirkman. Robert was a hardworking comics professional, and ended up doing Walking Dead and now Walking Dead is what it is. And I think that's probably the best example that creators can look at and see, like, this could happen to me.
Mhm. So publishers like yourself provide that platform, the distribution, the marketing, and the logistics to getting the book out. But the creators own 100% the vision, the equity of the characters that they create. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, with AfterShock, we do a partnership. So what we usually do is finance everything, and do a partnership with the creator. But the creator has that ownership, the rights, that they wouldn't have at a regular work for hire type of company.
Right. So like if Animosity gets picked up by Netflix, who gets what?
Yeah, then someone like Marguerite Bennett could greatly be rewarded by something like that.
Does AfterShock get any of that?
We're partners in that, so yeah, we would participate, and hopefully would help out the brand.
Great.
Sure. Maybe not just in the like potential movie cut, but you also of course sell a ton more trade paperbacks and all that kind of thing.
Right.
Multiple printings.
Like the Umbrella Academy guys.
Yeah. I have two sort of broad, very general, but I don't know. So people like you, people like me who make a life of this. You read some comic when you were a kid and it changed your life.
Yeah.
What if maybe it's not one, but is it a comic? Is it a character? Is it what was it that hooked you as a kid that put you in comics for the rest of your life? And then I'm going to ask you the professional version. What keeps you in the industry all these years? What got you into this as a kid, and then what keeps you in the work all these years?
Well, all right. So for the first question, and these are great questions. I love them, by the way. I had a few comics that I picked up on the spinner rack as a young kid, 6 or 7, and I remember there was an issue of Iron Man, an issue of Captain America, and an issue of Thor. And I had those 3 comics for a long time, and I would read them occasionally, and I liked them, I enjoyed them, but I didn't really fall in love yet. But I was always curious. There was like a subscription ad in one of those comics, and I would look at, okay, Avengers, Spider-Man, Iron Man, and then I saw this thing, X-Men. I was like, what is X-Men? Like, I was so curious. I had no idea. And then one of the subscription ads had like a picture of a few of them. I was like, who's this blue guy? So I was so curious about these X-Men, but I had no idea. I didn't know where to find an X-Men comic book. Flash forward a few years, I was maybe 10 years old, and I was getting to meet my future stepbrother and stepsister for the first time, or not for the first time, but I was going to their house for the first time. And I didn't know it, but they were comic collectors. And I walked into their living room, and my mind was blown. There was just like 300 comic books, just like all laying around, all Marvels, and a bunch of different titles and everything. And there it was. I saw X-Men. And so I said to my stepsister, I was like, do you mind if I read these? She was like, you read anything you want.
Wow.
And so I'm not sure exactly which one was the first one. I think it was Uncanny X-Men Annual 4, Nightcrawler's Inferno, if I'm remembering the number correctly. But that was definitely the first one. And I came in during the Claremont, Paul Smith, Claremont, Dave Cockrum era. And then I quickly, went back to the Byrne stuff, and I was a lifelong X-Men fan. And I said to myself, all right, well, one day I'm going to be the X-Men writer. So I got into college and I studied journalism, and I would write a new story for Marvel each week. And I'd put it in the mail and I'd send it to their submissions editor.
I love this.
And I would get these very polite, rejection letters back. I still have them in a file back here. And, it would say, hey, thanks for your submission, but we're good. Excelsior. And but I didn't give up. I kept sending a new story in each week. and eventually caught the attention of some editors up there, and I was encouraged to do an internship at Marvel. So I did the college internship in '93, and that's when I kind of got into the industry, and I've never left since then.
Great story.
But previous to that, I was working in comic retail, and I worked in retail for 3 years, during my college years, and so I actually miss the retail experience quite a bit.
So then what keeps you here?
What keeps me here?
It's a business, man.
It's funny. Yeah, I before starting AfterShock, I worked at Marvel and DC, both of which, Marvel's in Manhattan, and DC was the entire time I worked there. And I'm a New Jersey guy. I like the city, but I don't like living in the city. So anywhere I've lived in Jersey has always been suburbia and an hour away from the city. So for 20 years, I had a commute into the city, and, it was an hour plus in, an hour plus out. A good portion of my day, of my life, had been spent on trains and buses going into Manhattan. My fiance worked in Manhattan up until recently, and she was doing the bus and the train for a while, and she was like, how on earth did you do this for 20 years? And I said, every morning I woke up, I was happy to go to work, and I loved what I did. I love what I do. I wouldn't trade it for the world. That's right. It wasn't even a second thought. I just got up and I went into work and I did it. So that, just creating new things, creating new stories, that's what's kept me in all these years.
That's awesome.
That
Wonderful.
is awesome. That's something I say a lot too, is I wake up every day wanting to go to work, and I understand that that's a rarity, and I appreciate that, because I don't think most people in the world wake up wanting to go to work.
Yeah.
That's right. We're lucky.
Something
Yeah,
cool.
that's right. We've just got a couple comments. Some folks are really digging your shelf behind you. Especially the Stephen King. Apparently, you've got a big stack of that.
Yeah.
And one of our guys, Daniel, just said he wanted to say thanks to all of you at AfterShock. Because of your book Animosity, I finally got my friend into reading comics.
Oh, that's great. I mean, so you hear compliments like that, and it really makes you realize, you're trying hard and doing something right. And we've heard stories like that, specifically about Animosity, over the last few years, where people who didn't know what comics reading was would get recommended the book and then dive into it. I think a lot of that is the accessibility of Marguerite's writing and Raphael's artwork.
Yeah. And then we've got another question on YouTube. Big fan of Baby Teeth here. Is issue 17 on the publishing schedule soon?
Yes. So I thought that might come up, and I'm glad I have an answer for it. So the good news is that Donnie has completely written out the remaining scripts of the 4th story arc, which would be issues 16 to 20. 16 came out some time ago. So issues 17, 18, 19, 20 are all written. And Gary Brown, the artist, just showed me he's a little over halfway through issue 17 artwork, and he sent those pages to me yesterday. So the good news is, yes, that 4th volume will be completed. Both guys are hard at work at it. But kind of going back to what I was talking about earlier about having projects stockpiled before rushing them out, we're going to wait a hot second until Gary's mostly done with those 4 issues before we decide to release them. I would say it's not going to be too long from now, hopefully we'll be able to say when soon.
Awesome.
Thank you for mentioning John Byrne before I did. It's sort of my thing in every single thing I do.
Every chance.
that name comes up. He's my all-time favorite.
That and Captain America.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Mark Waid, who is another one of my all-time favorites.
Mm-hmm.
I won't ask you to choose your very favorite, but who are a couple of people that you love to work with? Who are a couple of folks that you know that make your job easy and fun?
Oh, there's been a lot. I mean, growing up, my favorites were Claremont on the writing side, Walt Simonson on the writing side, and on the art side, Walt Simonson and John Byrne and Paul Smith.
Oh,
Over the years, I've worked with a lot of great artists and writers. Garth is always a pleasure to work with. His scripts are pristine, and always surprise me. After working with Story for so many years and reading so many scripts per day, sometimes you kind of intuitively know where things are going, and Garth always surprises. John Layman is a dream to work with. Marguerite Bennett is a dream to work with. In the past, Scott Snyder, Joss Whedon, Ed Brubaker, all wonderful writers to work with. Andy Kubert, I've done many issues with, and he's always a dream. So yeah, there's so many people, and the real wonderful people, the unsung heroes are the colorists and the letterers. These are people that I'm working with every day, no matter what. They are always at the end of the assembly line in terms of getting the book out. They are not the superstars that the writers or artists are. And, there are people in the writing and coloring area that I've worked with for 25 years, and I couldn't see myself ever not working with. They become such a important part of the core team of what you're doing. Those people are so much fun.
That's awesome. We've got a couple more questions here. Ruben's asking, what's the AfterShock book you wish got more attention from readers?
Well, certainly very early on, we had some really good launches at the beginning of the company, but we didn't have quite the exposure or the experience, and people were still learning who we were. But back then we did a book called Replica. I think it was actually the first comic that we put into stores. Paul Jenkins wrote it and Andy Clark drew it, and that project had it all. It was sci-fi, it was funny. Andy's one of the most gifted artists I've ever worked with. That was just so much fun, and it was an early thing for us, so it didn't have the sales that I think we could do with it today. So I think that project would be something that I would have loved to have seen run for 20 issues.
Gotcha. One other question. So CJ would like you to talk a little bit about animosity. We've been talking about it quite a bit. He's like, what's it about?
Yeah, sure. So the beauty of animosity is that it has one of those very simple, easy core concepts to understand. And thank you. So animosity, one day the world wakes up and every single animal on the planet has gained the ability to speak and to reason, and they are as intelligent as you or I, and oftentimes more intelligent. So this event, which we call the wake, where all these animals woke up, sets the entire world into a new world order. Some of these animals want to coexist with humans perfectly. Others want to take revenge against human for, thousands of years of brutality. And so we're really looking at a brand new world. Our story focuses on a young 10-year-old girl named Jessie and her dog Sandor. And they are residents of New York City. The city kind of, goes to crap in a heartbeat. And the two of them have to go out on their own and they're searching for Jesse's older brother because some terrible things happened to her parents. So it's very much a journey book with the two of them. It's a kind of father-daughter dynamic with young Jessie, the girl, and her dog Sandor, who becomes basically a father figure. It's one of survival. It's a huge, diverse, big cast of many different types of people and many, many different types of animals. And there are many challenging threats that they face in their journey across the wilderness of America. So it's big, it's expansive, it's imaginative, and it's our flagship title, I guess.
And you said it's your longest running title as well, right?
Yeah, longest running title. Issue 28 comes out this month. I can't remember if it came out yet. I think it did. But yeah, it's 28 issues long. So for us, that's a big deal.
It's huge. Congrats again.
Thanks.
So looking back at the last 5 years, what does the next 5 years look like for AfterShock?
Next 5 years, we plan to grow as a company, and by that I don't really mean that we would suddenly be doubling our output, but we're looking to expand the creative relationships that we've already kind of cemented in place and continue to do great books, by people like Garth Ennis, like Cullen Bunn, Steve Orlando, Marguerite Bennett. The core foundation that we've kind of built around, we plan to continue that and to grow. We plan to experiment more with some new types of books and bringing in creators that people definitely recognize from other areas, and then some names that people won't recognize. We've been very fortunate to see interest and activity in the film and TV area in some of our projects. So that is really reassuring, knowing that there's an audience even outside of comics that believes in what we do and feels there's worth to it, and the desire to expand it. We're very sure that we always need to have something work as a comic book first, and everything we do needs to just be a great comic book. If something else happens afterwards, cool. But it's got to work as a comic book first. But seeing that whole area where there's activity and interest is very wonderful, because it reassures us that the brand is growing and being recognized for the quality and the story and the blood, sweat, and tears that we've been putting into the company over the last 5 years.
And as you mentioned before, story is king, and if it's a good story, it can translate into any medium.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you foresee it going into Netflix? Any of your titles going into Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Netflix? Can you talk about any of that?
I will say that we'll probably have some really cool announcements coming up soon. Nothing I can talk about today. But yeah, when you have great news like that, we certainly want to share it.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to share some very exciting stuff soon. And any of the platforms that you talked about, Apple, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, they've all been really good in kind of, I think, following the same model that we do in terms of quality programming. So, we'd be really proud to have any of our titles wind up in one of those great places.
That'd be awesome.
So with all those submissions that you sent in to Marvel, have you changed a couple of the names and considered resubmitting them to yourself? Is there a nom de plume going on? Just between us, is Mike Marts planning on releasing one of his long lost stories one of these days?
No, it's funny. When I was a kid and a teenager, and certainly when I was trying to break into Marvel, my core desire was to write comics, and I wanted nothing else. when I discovered what comics editing meant, and that it was more than just, being a proofreader, that's all the creative outlet I need for myself. And that's what I've fallen in love with over the last 27, 8 years, whatever. So that's what I'll be doing. I don't see myself taking any of the old stories out of the file anytime soon.
So as we're wrapping up, I just want to see if there's anything else you'd like us as retailers or the other readers out there and fans of AfterShocks to know.
Well, we felt so confident with the start of our 2020, like a lot of people. We had some really great debuts. Man Who Effed Up Time from
Yep.
John Layman, and Zach Thompson and Lonnie Nadler with Undone by Blood, and
So good.
God Killers by Mark Sable. We had some titles that we were really, really proud of, and they did well. But everything kind of got interrupted. And I think that what I'd want people to know is that same quality and the same great effort that we put into those launches at the beginning of the year will be double, tripled for the releases that we have at the tail end of the year, and then moving forward into next year. It's been strange, kind of containing excitement and energy on projects over the last few months, and now I just kind of feel this big desire to get great stuff out to people again.
Great. We need it. We need distraction and escape more than ever these days. So thank you for all the work that you guys keep putting out.
Oh, no, thank you. One of the big reasons why AfterShock has been as successful as we've been over the last 5 years, and why we've grown, is that the reader and retailer community has really embraced us and supported us and believed in our vision. So the thanks go to you guys.
Our pleasure. Keep making great stuff. We'll keep selling it. Easy.
Okay. Yeah.
That's the idea.
Will do.
That about wraps us up. That brings us to our hour. Mike, I want to really thank you
so
for
much.
joining us.
Thank you,
This
thank
was
you.
a great conversation. It was a lot of fun. We look forward to everything AfterShock is bringing at us the rest of the year, next year. Looking forward to these big announcements that you'll be sharing with us.
Yep.
That's great. I'm looking forward to it too, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to me.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Folks at home, thank you for joining us. I want to thank Mike Marts, editor-in-chief of AfterShock Comics. Encourage you folks to go to their website, read about all their cool stuff. Then go to black-cat-comics.com and buy all of that cool stuff, and then read it and enjoy it, because that's what it's all about, is reading and loving comics.
Right.
Like I say, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. Tune in every Saturday, 2 p.m. For Comic Shop Talk Live. Thanks again, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks again, folks at home.
Thank you.
We'll see you
you.
next time in a brand new show.